My name is Jonathon Moberly. I'm the Dean of the College of Business and Technology at Concordia University in Nebraska. I also am an Associate Professor of Business there. And then I'm going to talk through my journey. I'm the only Dean in the United States of America who still coaches high school football. So I coach high school football in Seward. And you're going to hear why I do that here in a little bit. But anyway, this is my first time at Best Practices, and I've just had an absolute blast being able to be here. I appreciate all of you being here with me. This is a topic that I looked at just because we get a lot of churches and nonprofits who come to us wanting help with social media, and so this is kind of what drove me to really develop this and be able to be here today. So quickly, my journey. I grew up in Carbondale, Illinois. I was the son of two college professors. And they were both professors at SIU Carbondale, if anybody's familiar with that. But when it came, that's right. Not very many people know that. But when it came time to choose a college, I was not looking to go to college where my parents both taught at, and so I went to Eastern Illinois University. I played football with that guy there, Tony Romo. I was a senior when he was a freshman. So my whole claim to fame is I was at least on campus when he was there. Okay. But one of the things, when I was growing up, I was not raised to be Christian. My parents and I went to church on Christmas Eve and Easter, and that's just what we did. And it's, as you all know, that's what a lot of the population does. And so, but now that I'm looking back on it, I'm kind of seeing where God was at work with me and trying to help me find out what my true vocation was. Because initially, I'm at Eastern, and that's right around the time when the movie Jerry Maguire came out with Tom Cruise, and at least I can say that to you all, and you all know what Jerry Maguire is, or at least who Tom Cruise is. When I say that to my students at Concordia, Nebraska, they have no idea what in the world I'm talking about. Okay, but I was really interested in law, and I love sports, and a lot of guys from my recruiting class were getting looks from NFL teams, and as a result, there are a lot of sports agents coming to campus to try to represent them. And I was the only guy they knew who had any interest in law, period. I mean, I knew I really wanted to go to law school. So I kind of sat with them when these agents come on campus, and they'd ask me, hey, what do you think about this guy? And so I found what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, which is if I could combine sports and law and be with athletes all the time, I was golden. And so I went west, went to law school at St. Louis University School of Law, and that's really what I focused my time on there is labor law, employment law, contract law. And for about my last year of law school and for about 6 years after I graduated, that's what I did, represented pro athletes. Started representing pro women's soccer players, football players, a lot of different types of athletes, and was definitely having the time of my life. Because when you're young and single, you can pretty much kind of do whatever you want. And I could take calls at 2 a.m. and travel on a whim, and it was a blast. But what I quickly found is 99% of what I was doing there was with athletes was marketing and sales. And so I kind of did it backwards, because when I got done with my last final exam in law school, I swore I would never go in the classroom again. And then I went and got my MBA at Lindenwood University because I just wanted to have that skill set. That kind of set me on a path in business. And as I was doing this, then I all of a sudden met the beautiful lady over here. Dr. Jen Friend is a biology professor at Concordia. And that was kind of God's first way of just bringing me towards Him. And Dr. Friend, in particular, just started me on that path. And then, but as a boyfriend and then a fiance and then a husband, I kind of wasn't listening to him. And then God ended up putting this opportunity in my life to just randomly teach a class. I got a call out of the blue from WashU School of Law to teach a sports law class there at night. And so I was kind of doing the agent thing during the day, teaching at night. And at the end of basically May of 2007, at the end of that one semester, I decided, well, this is it for me. And so I sold my agency and then dove into teaching. And then I was like, well, geez, I have a law degree and an MBA. I might as well go coach high school football, right? Because that's what everybody does with a law degree and MBA. But it was kind of like God's way of just, okay, taking me on this path. And then I coached at a really high-rent private school in St. Louis, and then I eventually got an opportunity to coach at Lutheran High School St. Charles, where this man right here is one of my players, which is, I'll tell you, is Trey Dilley, who's a vicar at where?
Christ the King in Lake Ozark.
Yeah. So this is really like full circle for me, because now here's Trey, who's getting ready to go into his final year of the seminary and be a pastor. But when I was there, that was kind of God's way of putting these guys in my life. And all these guys were born and raised in a Lutheran church. I was not. And my first time really kind of working with them in the summer before the season, I kind of really realized, and that was kind of when it finally hit me, okay, you can't be on a level you need to be with these guys if you don't accept Jesus Christ. And so at the age of 33, right before the first game of our season, I was baptized, and I can tell you when you're baptized at 33, you know what's going on. And it's a absolutely amazing experience, life-changing experience. And so I'm kind of looking at that, and I mean, now as a Christian, I look back at that, and you can kind of see these things that God puts in my path. And then I get a random call from Concordia University, Nebraska. Lo and behold, they looked at my LinkedIn profile, okay, social media, looked on LinkedIn. They searched Lutheran MBA, and I was at the top of the list. And so they called me, and it said, hey, you should apply for a job there.
You were the only one.
What's that? I very well could have been, because they didn't call anybody else. So then anyway, and the opening conversation from the professor who called me, he didn't introduce himself. He didn't do anything other than say, hey, have you ever thought about moving to Seward, Nebraska? Now, I had coached with a lot of people who had been at Seward, so I knew the high-quality people who they produced. But my initial reaction, I didn't say it to him, but was absolutely not. I mean, I'm living in St. Louis. We're happy. I was coaching. I was teaching. My entire family's there, but you know, it's just kind of God's way of pulling me there. So anyway, went there for an interview. It was my first time ever in Nebraska, and that was 9 years ago, and we fell in love with the place. But then I took about nine years off from coaching, but it's kind of like, you know, when coaching was kind of that final thing that God put in my life to be able to be closer to Him, that's something I eventually realized I can't ignore that anymore. And so that kind of made me, again, the only dean in the United States of America who coaches high school football. But I volunteer there at Seward, and it just kind of gives me a way to be able to get back like that. Now, our goals for today, and the thing is, I'm starting where I started with social media, which is I'm starting at the ground level, like setting up a Facebook page, okay? But what I want to be able to show you is the difference between brand and branding, and what that means, and how that can help your ministry, taking the time to go through that process. I'm going to show you how you build what's called a brand platform, okay, and being able then to use that as a foundation for your messaging about your ministry, whether that is a church, whether that's a school, whether that's both. And really be able then to launch a social media strategy. And what you're going to hear me talk about a lot today is social media has to be a strategy. It can't just be random posts. I mean, if you're really trying to do something and have it work for you, okay? And then I'm going to talk to you about, okay, well, how do you develop a strategy for social media, and what's the whole process of that? So we're going to go through a lot of different things. And I'd had somebody ask me already about my slides. I'll make these slides available on Whova, or you're going to have my email address on the last slide. You can email me, and I'd be glad to send them to you. Okay? So now, when we're looking at brand and branding, okay, now this gentleman here, Marty Neumeier, is the king of branding in the business industry, okay, and he really defines it as that gut feeling that we all get about certain organizations, okay, and a lot related to perception, okay, and then branding is really how you influence that gut feeling that people have about you and have about your ministry, okay. Someone who's doing really well with that right now is a guy named Sean Tabagahan from Fresno. He has his own branding agency and has worked with a lot of Fortune 500 companies specifically on branding. But that's kind of what we're looking at branding. and brand, gut feeling, and then influencing the perception of that gut feeling people have about your ministry. Okay? Now, a brand platform. What is that? So we have the great Simone Biles. Okay? So you have to look at it as that's that foundation for figuring out and projecting and influencing the perception of your ministry, okay, with your audience. Okay, and so with Simone, I mean, she starts everything from this platform. But if that platform doesn't exist, she can't jump that high. Okay? She can't do all the great things that we've all seen her do on the Olympics without a strong platform. If there's one screw that's loose, if it's not a strong foundation, she's just kind of doing things on a whim. Okay? All right? So what we're going to talk about is the process of creating this platform allows you to really be able to, at the end, figure out what are some themes, what are some amazing stories that can be told, okay, about your ministry and about who, especially to the audience you're trying to reach. Okay? Now, this is kind of an example if you do have a brand platform versus if you don't. Okay? Now, if you don't have a brand platform and you've never really talked in your congregation or your school about what type of message you want to put out there to the community, and it's not anything negative, it's just if you've never talked about that as a group, as a congregation, as a school, okay, everybody is probably going to have a different kind of message that they're sending out there and putting out there about your ministry to whoever it is your audience is. Okay? All right? And so if everybody is putting out, or mostly putting out, a different message, okay, and there's no cohesion, there's no platform, okay, then what you're doing at that top bullet, you're leaving kind of the people, your partners in ministry, your congregation members, parents at your school, you're leaving them to do their own interpretation of what the message should be. Future members, potentially, if that's what you're trying to do, use social media as a way to grow the membership in your congregation or grow the membership or the students in your school, grow family involvement. Without a unified message, they're going to hear different things. And then you have people who maybe they're not able to speak about it because they haven't really gone through that exercise, okay? But you put a brand platform together, what it allows is everybody coming together to figure out what a universal message should be. And that is what goes out to whoever your audience is, okay? All right? So it's a really great opportunity to really come together and bring your partners in ministry together to figure this out. Okay, because now, once you go through that process, and I'll show you how you can do that, you have a universal message, themes, you talk about your mission, your values, and all those can really allow you to have a stronger presence. Okay, but without that, you're leaving everybody on their own interpretation. Okay, now, I know I've just gone through a couple slides. When I show you that, any questions about any of that so far? Okay. Now, how do we actually do this? Okay. What I'm going to take you through is step by step an organization that Lynn Lutheran School in Lynn, Kansas. Was one of our clients for our Organization Development Clinic, and I'll explain what that is. And so I'm going to take you through the process that we went through with them to develop their brand platform. Okay? Now, to kind of give you an idea what this is, our Community and Organization Development Clinic, that's part of our College of Business and Technology. And I started this about 8 years ago, patterned after law clinics at law schools. So a lot of law schools, especially large ones, have what they call a law clinic where citizens can come in and get free legal advice. And the students are kind of working with the citizens under the guidance of a law faculty member, of a licensed attorney. It's a similar concept where here students are doing work for real organizations in a consulting role under the guidance of a faculty member who's usually me. Okay? And so kind of take you through the process that Lynn Lutheran went through. All right. So who we really target to help are LCMS organizations, small businesses, really those organizations you see here. Now, if we have a large organization that comes to us and is willing to give a very large donation for us to help them, we'll be glad to do it. But who we are targeting are the businesses and the organizations that may not have $50,000 to go hire some high-powered marketing firm to do 1 week of work for them. Okay. Instead, we really are trying to focus on the organizations who would need our help. Okay. Now, first it all comes with an inquiry. And so I just have a standard business at CU and the email address, and that's how Lynn Lutheran contacted us. They actually went through our Director of Advancement, Kurt Brashear, and then they ultimately emailed me. Okay. And then we set up a meeting. And at that meeting, I really try to see, along with some of my students, what are their needs, okay? And these are just few of a lot of things that we've done for organizations, but the most common thing that we've done is brand platform development, social media strategy, marketing plans, okay? And so what Lynn Lutheran needed, particularly their endowment board, is they needed to have a strategy to be able to reach out to every single alum of Lynn Lutheran School and get them to donate to their endowment. So they wanted a brand platform, okay? And then I assembled my project team, who I'm going to show you, 3 wonderful ladies, 2 of which are looking for jobs, and I'm going to really push you to hire them because they're absolutely amazing, okay? But that's what we do is I figure out, okay, based on what the client needs, who are some students who really have the skill sets, who we've had in class, who have the skill sets to be able to help on that project, okay? And I usually find it's student team members. We've somehow connected to course credit. We have multiple classes we can do that for. But then I select a project manager who can kind of assemble things. So then we get our project team assembled, and then we schedule an initial meeting with the client. And when we met with Lynn Lutheran, kind of once I met with them, we had this, and we agreed to work together. I have our clients, whoever that is, and you're going to see we've worked with a lot of other LCMS organizations as well, is I have them just tell us their story. Why are they here? What's the problem that we're trying to solve? What are their expectations? When do they need it by? What's the timeline? Okay, and so we kind of make that crystal clear, okay? And then then I kind of take the students after that, and we try to figure out, okay, well, here's the deadline. Here's all the tasks we need to complete. And then I pretty much then turn it over to the students, and they work. And I meet with them usually once a week to see kind of where they're at, okay, to perform what they need to do. So what my students did, and I'll show you them here in a little bit, is they conducted a listening session with Lynn Lutheran with their endowment board, which is made up of parents and alums, and figured out really how they could develop this brand platform, okay? And then at the end, they presented it to them, did a full presentation, and then what we don't demand it, but what we ask for is some type of donation. And it doesn't matter how much, how little, because everything that is donated goes to fund our student scholarships and is tax deductible. So that's kind of a plug for Organization Development Clinic, okay? Now, but that's what we did, okay? Other LCMS organizations we've helped is Camp Lutheran in Schuyler, Nebraska, and Heartland Lutheran High School in Grand Island. And then we've done a lot of work for other nonprofits and so on, okay? Now, what their need assessment is, I mean, with this school in particular, there were 3 different schools around Lynn, Kansas, in some proximity, some of which had been started as early as 1830. They eventually merged all the schools to this one. But their entire operating budget was funded by donations at the 3 churches. But there was a group of parents and alums in 2018 who at least got an endowment started, but they were kind of at a standstill because they had really talked to everybody they knew, and they wanted to be able to grow it, and the only way they could do that is doing some kind of marketing effort to do that, okay? So what their needs were, they needed to increase awareness of the endowment with their alums and any friends of Lynn Lutheran School, okay? And then they wanted to be able to use that then to reach their endowment goal so that they could have enough of an endowment once it got completely fulfilled that could fund the operations of the school, okay? And so that was their need. Now, when I assemble my project team, this is my A team. So this is kind of the small Lutheran world. So Lydia Grimpo, her dad Phil Grimpo is the one who did all the lighting here at Best Practices. She's from Lincoln. She's my advisee. She's a double major in business and criminal justice. I really wanted her to go to law school, and then she fell in love with marketing. Haley Steinbauer, her father was just 2 years ago was the pastor at the UNL Lutheran Chapel. Haley graduated last year and is now doing an internship at Samaritan's Purse in Hanoi, Vietnam. But she is like a future CEO someday, something with LCMS. Hannah Schmela actually is getting ready to graduate here, and she just took a call, I believe, to Christ Lincoln. And she's got an amazing skill set because she's a music major, vocalist, but she also is great with marketing. So these three, they were our project team. Lydia was the project manager because she had done some other things before. Okay? So then we got to the brand platform. Okay? And so this is kind of the steps. All right? Step number one is just asking questions and just listening. And again, this is a great opportunity, whether you're trying to do this for your congregation or for your school, getting everybody, either everybody in a room or getting everybody in a room and then having maybe Google Form surveys for people who can't make it, but just get everybody in a room and just have them start talking about these questions and have one person facilitate, okay? Question number one, again, and I'm going to have these PowerPoints available, but question number one is, based on who we're serving, what type of person can our ministry serve the best? So you're really trying to figure out who your audience is, like who are you really trying to reach, okay? And that's a very, very important question. But that's kind of gets you started, okay? And then you're trying to figure out, and this kind of gets a little bit to your values, okay? And some of your organizations may already have figured out your mission statement, your values, your vision statement. Maybe you have a strategic plan. Some may not, okay? But the people who we are serving, what's the value that comes out as a result of our service to them, okay? Whether it's students or whether it's congregation members. Now, how do those values, again, this is kind of a process, one question after another, how do those relate to the experience that our students get in our ministry, okay? And so you're really trying to connect the value that they get from being a member of your congregation or being a student at your school, okay, to what it is that the experience you're trying to provide to them. Why should they even care about what we value, okay? And so that gets you really thinking about what are the great things that we offer that people should care about, particularly our audiences and whoever your audience is, okay? And how do those values then benefit those people we're serving the most, okay? And so again, you're kind of, as you're going through this, you're going to see that there are several things that can come out of this, okay? Now, how can they learn about us? All right, so that's kind of where you start to think about, okay, well, we have this great school, we have this great congregation, or maybe both. We know that there's value for them to be a member. We know there's value for those students to be enrolled in our school, but how can they learn about it? And that's when you start thinking about how can we get the message out, okay? Now, going through this exercise and just listening, okay, just listening, and I'd highly suggest recording it, okay, and that way you can listen to it later and have people go through. So Lydia, Haley, and Hannah did this listening session, but they didn't go to Lynn. They just did everything on Zoom, okay? And really, they got it, and Lynn Lutheran got their whole endowment board together, as well as some other alumni, and they sent them the questions ahead of time, and they just asked, and they recorded, okay? But what that allows you to do is, one thing that comes out of it, if you haven't done it already, is what will come out of that is what you all, kind of consensus, think your values are. Okay? Internally. Externally, what's going to come out of this, and you're going to see, is some really absolutely wonderful stories that you can now tell, okay, that starts to give you ideas. This is the story that needs to be told. And this one over here needs to be told. And we need to have a way to be able to do that, okay? The final question is, what's our purpose? How do we see ourselves? Now, many of your organizations probably already have done a mission statement, and there's all kinds of different theories on how you develop mission statements. I'm a firm believer, if you haven't yet, start with these questions, figure out what your values are. It's a lot easier to develop the statement after that, okay? But what this does is this allows you really to start to things rise to the top. That's going to allow you to see what your mission is, okay? But this is an absolutely crucial step. That's why it's number one, okay? It's absolutely crucial to be able to do this, okay? Now, so that's what Lydia, Hannah, and Haley did. Asked the questions. They got a lot of feedback. They spent probably 2 hours on Zoom with these endowment board members, alumni, and just had a lot to digest, okay? But then you start to see stories, okay? And what comes out of those is kind of those great stories about what your ministry has done for certain individuals, how your students have changed for the better, okay? And so it's kind of like you start to think about that. You have to think about what's compelling, okay? What are people going to care about? Now, we use two very, very different examples of stories. Harry Potter versus Hoosiers, okay? My wife would say that Harry Potter is the most compelling story ever told. I would say Hoosiers is the most compelling story, okay? But the thing is, based on your audiences, you may have multiple stories that rise up. Stories are going to be compelling to different people based on what they are, okay? For me, Hoosiers. 3rd grade with my grandmother in Terre Haute, Indiana, the premiere of Hoosiers. That was a compelling story for me. Going to see the first Harry Potter in a midnight show when my wife and I first started dating, I fell asleep. So that was hard, okay? But
was it hard on her or you?
It was hard on me.
It was hard on me, but you want to share that joy with your spouse.
Yeah.
And he fell asleep.
Yeah, that's right, because it wasn't compelling to me, right? And everybody has different things that are,
I did all the time.
yeah.
It's been about 20 years of poking that.
Yeah.
Keeps it spicy.
All right, so again, I've taken you through step one and really talked about the compelling picture. Any questions? Yes.
Can you do like rolling compelling stories? Because we have a very active preschool, but we also have a very active church in our
Yep.
neighborhood. So can you like do like a month's campaign for preschool, like in the fall, and then a campaign for Lent for like our all church studies?
Yeah.
Can you kind of do a rolling thing?
Yeah, come up with a content calendar and themes.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Other questions initially? Okay. Yes. Yes.
So I guess at a church level, if you had different audience targets, would you then have different teams for each one? So if you had like families as one of your target audiences, and then like
Yes.
children or young adults,
Yep.
or older populations. So, and then would you have each of this be individual to those populations and have a different kind of team and thing for each one?
Yes, I would. Because, and you'll see, I'll talk through, at least I'll give you an example of a content calendar, and you're going to have different things that mean different things to different people, but you're looking at like if you're doing a Facebook page for your congregation, you're trying to serve a lot of different people all the time. So, but having that one place where you're putting out those messages, but with different types of themes, yeah, that'll be the easiest to manage. Okay. Now, when we're building this platform, again, so Hannah, Haley, Lydia did this listening session and really started kind of taking from it and started just, three of them got together in one of our classrooms, just put things all over whiteboards. The first thing, when you're looking at a brand platform, just kind of like I used the example with the I-beam with Simone Biles, okay, that platform, okay. You can also look at it like you're growing a tree. So the values that come out of those conversations. If your organization really hasn't kind of put that on paper, those are kind of the seeds. Those got to be planted first, okay? And then the next thing, so when we were going through with Lynn Lutheran, they wanted to have a campaign strictly for their endowment that aligned with the mission of the church, okay? But they needed a brand platform and a social media strategy for their endowment because they had one audience in mind: their alumni, okay, and members of the church. So what they looked, my 3 students really came up with this, and I agreed, was, the values that came out of this were body of Christ, okay, inspiration, permanence, and magnification. So those were really the values that really came out of those discussions with the board members, the endowment board members, and some of the alumni. Those are the values for their endowment campaign. Okay. Now, next thing is your mission. Okay, and so they really wanted to have a mission statement for their endowment. Okay, and so this is really what came out of looking at those values. Serves to build the foundational funding necessary to secure a Christ-centered and biblically focused Lutheran education for future generations. Okay, that's the mission. That's every single day. That's what they're doing. It's not their vision. It's, hey, every day this is what we're working towards. So from a tree standpoint, that's the trunk. Okay, and then then you start to look at, okay, well, we got the values and we have the mission. What should be the pillars of our messaging? So what are kind of the main things that came out that kind of can start us on the path to messaging? So now the tree's growing and now it starts to get branches. Okay, now the pillars generally are coming from your values. You're just explaining them more in a way that you would put out there to explain it to somebody who is trying to question, is it worth me giving to the endowment or not? Okay? So, body of Christ, that pillar that came out of that, takes a group to support this, to support the mission of Christ and bring his love to children. Okay? With the inspiration, okay? That high level education, innovation, inspiring students at Lynn Lutheran to grow and expand. Permanence. So what their goal is with this endowment is long-term financial security, that they never have to worry about money again. They never have to worry about the amount of member donations that are coming in and, hey, will we have enough funding just to be able to offer all the grades of teaching that we want. Okay? So permanence, all right? And magnification, so expanding it, okay? So that they have the ability to offer this to a lot of different children other than those that are just in Lynn, okay? So those are the pillars. And so that kind of starts them on the path then. Once they go through, they get their values, their mission. Now once they start taking those values and really explaining what those actually mean, now you start to see, okay, well, this is how we can craft our messaging, okay? Now, then you start to, so I'm kind of using it as an example. You have the permanence value, the mission, the permanence pillar. Now you start to get themes, and now you start to get into a little bit more detail, okay, with the twigs that come off the branches, okay? So one of the themes that came out of the permanence pillar was our actions right now, what we donate right now, the time we spend messaging about this endowment. This is going, and what's donated right now is going to have a real impact later for the kids who attend the school, okay? And then, using the same example, finally you get to messages, so the leaves. So this is literally like the messaging that goes out in your marketing brochures, social media, and the like, okay? And so this is kind of more like messages, like with an endowment. You're trying to educate people about, because the people you're reaching out to, that they're trying to reach out to, they're people who went to Lynn Lutheran, so they know what Lynn Lutheran is. But with messaging, especially any of you who've done fundraising, you need a call to action. We need somebody to do something right now, okay? Make an impact, leave a legacy for children at Lynn Lutheran. That was one of the messages that at least came out of this pillar, permanence, and the value. Make an impact now. Okay, leave a legacy. Okay, so when you're developing a brand platform, that's kind of what what that will look like. But again, the more pillars you have, the more themes you have, the more messaging. But this allows you then to have that, at least have a plan, okay, for what you want to put on Facebook, what you want to put on Instagram, what do you want that all to relate to. Because without that, without a plan, and without that process, you're kind of grabbing, especially if you're trying to get people to donate money, okay? That needs to be powerful message and organized. Now, so with these three ladies, a couple of testimonials, okay? So Shane Oldie and Lydia Heisterman were actually both went to Lynn, moved away, came back to live there, and their kids go there now, okay? And both of them really just had awesome things to say about these three, which I'm not surprised because they're great. But they really kind of helped them, they really helped Lynn Lutheran educate them about branding and kind of set them on the path, okay? And so that, at least on a brand platform, I kind of take you through, show you an example. What questions do you have about that? Yes.
Not a question, but just saying it back and trying to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
Our context is a church and a school.
Yep.
And we have struggled with, is that two things are one thing
Yes.
when we go to talk to people about it. And I feel like what this is leading me to is we do have a mission statement and we do have values.
Yes.
And where different ministries, church and school being big ones, but there are others as well, youth ministry and all of that, those, they can all align with the same mission statement and the same
Yes.
values.
They can.
And different themes will come out.
That's right.
Different messages will come out.
Yes.
But they can all be speaking the same language.
They can, and it should be. Especially, and you bring up a good point about school, because a lot of the churches have the school directly connected to it, and that is part of their ministry. But with the school, you're looking at different audiences, and you have a different purpose. Ultimately with a school, most congregations in some ways are using the school to bring children into the church and bring the children closer to Christ if that's not been part of what their life has already been. Okay? And so it's okay with the school to have a separate brand platform so long as it aligns, it has to align with the mission of the church and the values. But you have a different audience, and you'd have a different. I would strongly argue you have a different purpose for what you're trying to communicate to that audience. Yeah, yeah. Other questions? Yes.
So the reason you did a branding platform is so you can have multiple people cooperate creating content. Is that kind of the idea?
Part of it. Yep, that's part of it. It's also just it gives you. Really gives you some lanes, I think, because every post that you have to be able to tie it to one of your pillars. You should, so that way that's where the consistency comes in. Absolutely. Every post that you make, every your website, everything. If everything is tied to that one message, is a lot more powerful. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. Now. So now you have this brand platform developed, okay, and it's a lot of work. If you do it right, it's a lot of work because you want to get every stakeholder involved in trying to figure it out. Now, how do you actually, once you add the platform, what do you do with social media? Okay, so there's a lot of different social media channels I can talk about. I'm going to just talk about Facebook and Instagram because they're very different types of audiences, they're different purposes and different ways of doing things. Okay, so you have to have who the audience is in mind. Okay, now with Instagram, and some of you, this may be old news, but for most of you who haven't really dove into Instagram yet, Instagram is, I'm looking at it as a congregation, how you get to your youth, for school, how you get to potential students. Okay, because that's the age range, and based on some of the parents I know with their kids, the age when kids are starting Instagram accounts is even lower than 13. But on average, that's kind of where it starts. 24, I mean, there's a lot, I mean, this is just common. It doesn't mean it's like I have an Instagram page and I'm 46 years old. So it doesn't mean I don't have Instagram, but that's kind of the most common ages. All right? So when you're using Instagram, what you're trying to do with that audience is you're just trying to create awareness of maybe some opportunities in your congregation or opportunities at your school and build that connection, put them together, okay? Whereas with Facebook, okay, this is where, I mean, putting it in our terms, parents, potential congregation members, okay? Now again, common age range doesn't mean that people over 55 don't have Facebook. My mother-in-law uses Facebook all the time, and she contacts myself and my wife multiple times a week asking us if we've read a certain post, okay? And so, but those are your age ranges. So you have to match up the channel with the audience, because the thing is, these folks aren't on Facebook, okay? They're not, they may have a page, but they're not on Facebook every day. They're on Instagram, okay, and TikTok. I haven't dove into TikTok yet, okay? But you have to match the channel with your audience, okay? Now, I'm just going base level. When you design your page, and this is something I learned the hard way when I was setting up our pages for College of Business, okay? It's easiest if you have some type of standard email that your IT person can set up, that's a standard general email. Like for us, we use business@cune.edu. And we can allocate, and we use that to set up our pages, and that's the email on file. So that way, if one of us leaves, then we can just put somebody else in that email. But if you have someone, you know, a particular employee who registers for the page, if that employee takes a call somewhere else, guess what? You're going to have to unless Facebook can maneuver it for you, you may have to very well start a new page. Okay? So I would highly recommend that. Facebook and Instagram have the same email address. This is a mistake I made. Same email address used to set up both. Okay? Because what the neat thing is about both of them is they sync together, and which can make things a lot more efficient. But if you use a different email address to set up one versus the other, they won't sync together. So now all of a sudden you're having to, if you have a post that can go to both audiences, okay, now you have to make the post on Facebook, and then you got to reconfigure it, make it on Instagram. But if you, and it's kind of one of those little things, and I didn't know that, okay, until I went through it. All right, that's step one. Okay, step two, survey your audience. What do they want to see? Now, I did a survey of 85 students ages 16 to 23. So local high school students, as well as my students at Concordia. 85 responded, okay? Now, what platform do you think 100% of them said that they use the most? Facebook or Instagram? Instagram. All of them. Now, this is really getting into Family Feud. What do you think attracts them to a page and keeps them there on Instagram? What kind of posts, what kind of things with posts, those kind of things? What's that? Quick, like after 30 seconds, they're done. They're done. Yeah? What else you think that they want to see?
Call to action.
Call to action. Yep. Pictures. They don't want to read. Videos. Videos that are 30 seconds less.
Right now it's videos over pics.
Yep. They do like, yeah, I agree. Okay? All right? So, when you're, and they were all over map. Pictures or videos, videos more. Additional feedback I got was, I don't want anything 30 seconds or more. I'm just going to stop. Okay? They don't want that. Okay? But like when you're running the page itself, and this surprised me, design. A lot of them really care about it being designed very well. And using top-notch graphics, that is a big deal to them. Pictures of video, frequency of posts, not as much. You can see it's about 30%. Okay, but that really surprised me. That especially my college students really cared that much about how the page was designed graphically. Not necessarily the post, but the design of the page. Okay? Now, some other like small, like detailed suggestions, but were very good as we were trying to set this up. Okay? They want it frequent and interactive. Okay, and this is just speaking like College of Business, like what they wanted. They want to be able to interact with it. They don't want to just watch a video and move on. They want to be able to interact, do polls, things like that. Okay? Quality. Again, that comes to quality. And this student, I know who he is. He's one of my advisees. But he doesn't want to see a bunch of random, like not random, but posts, even if they're made on a content calendar. He doesn't want to see anything that's low quality. I want top quality. He said, I want to see one good post rather than one bad one every day. Back to the appearance. Okay, high quality, high resolution. They really care about that. Participation. So like again, like doing polls, doing like fun things, like like every once in a while, put something up. We'll put stuff up about our faculty and like click on which faculty member you think was the lead singer of a rock band when he was just in college. And that got everybody because they had no idea our department chair Andy Languish was the lead singer of a rock band. Okay, but those kind of things, they like that stuff. Like they like being able to see polls because now, I mean, as you all are familiar with, especially on any streaming service, the ability to like things, stars, that stuff, they like that stuff. Okay, so those were kind of some other suggestions. All right, now so that's kind of going to the design, but then it comes time to like, okay, well, now we have to, the rubber meets the road. Okay, how do we do this and sustain it? Okay, so developing a content calendar. Okay, and this is again where once you kind of start, you get your brand platform developed, you get an idea with your page design, developing a strategic calendar when you're posting, what you're posting about. And this kind of comes back to like the themes. Because if you have a separate Facebook page maybe, or separate Instagram for your students versus your adult congregation members, okay? So this is just what we do, okay? And I can tell you, it's incredibly hard to sustain this. I have 4 interns who work for me right now. That's the only way I'd be able to sustain it, because I can't do it by myself, okay? But like first week of every month, and this is kind of where we looked at what our students cared about. They like being able to see who's coming in, okay? Who are potential students, what are some really cool stories about current students, inside the classroom. So we do like, I get them upset, I do 1-minute clips sometimes of really cool, like we have really cool stuff all the time, but if there are really cool things we're doing in the classroom that we think they would enjoy, we kind of do a video and we kind of mash it up together. New events we have coming out, so it's kind of first week of every month. Those are kind of the posts that we try to do. I'm not always successful, but we try to do them on the same day. And you can really, especially with Facebook now, using the Meta suite, you can dig into what time can you post something where you're going to get the most amount of views like within 30 minutes. And you can really, I mean, and any of you have Facebook, especially if you do a Facebook page for your organization and you set it up that way, you can really see and get it down to exact time and day, okay? Second week of every month, we do an alumni spotlight, potential student again, strategic plan update. Again, trying to mix it up with things that they care about so they're not doing the same thing every single week. Again, when we surveyed them, and you can see why we have potential student spotlights, because that was the number one thing they wanted to see, is who are the students who are coming on campus and visiting or thinking about coming here. Because that then allows them to interact with them, which is good for us, especially if they interact in a positive way, okay? And that's kind of something too, especially if you have a high school, getting the students to interact, especially on Instagram, that's a big deal for them. We do an entrepreneur grind where we look at alums, because our students talk about if they want to see alums, they want to see alums who are entrepreneurs and alums that are big time leadership position like C-suite or heads of congregations, those kind of things. So we do that once a month, and then 4th week we kind of go back in some other stuff of leadership, and we do a spotlight with Seward. This is just an example for us. You have to not have to, but I would highly suggest you figure out what can work for you and what's based on the themes that you have, what you can do and sustain. That's the key thing. It's one thing to set up the calendar. It's another thing, can you sustain it? All right. Now, so that's kind of where the plan. All right. So this is what I would highly recommend you figure out. Number one is have somebody who's managing the content calendar and knows who's creating content, when the deadlines are, ensuring theirs are met. If you don't have that, you're going to have posts all over the place. Okay? And just like with anything in life, you have to have a leader. You have to have somebody who's watching deadlines and making sure those are met. I would highly recommend that. Who's going to produce the content? Okay? So right now, you know, without my student interns, we would not be able to we would not be any close to fulfilling this. So, you know, looking at people in your congregation, okay, who want to volunteer and serve, or people on your staff who can produce different parts of content that align with what they do every day, I would figure that out and maybe kind of take the content calendar to them and say, hey, would you be willing to do this once a month? Produce this particular content once a month, okay? And that's their responsibility, all right? Once they produce the content, maybe this same person can do it, or maybe you really educate them about the brand platform, because the words and what the post is, that has to align with your brand platform. If you're trying to be unified in your message and make a difference, that has to be aligned. And it has to be something that's engaging. 30 seconds top on the video. If you do have a picture, have some way for them to interact, doing a poll, something like that. Okay? You have to have somebody looking at that. All right? And then making sure it's posted on time. Now I'm going to show you a couple of websites you can use that actually you can use for free that can make this very easy. Okay? But then you do all these posts, as you all know, you have to have somebody monitoring that all the time. Because depending on what you're posting, you want to make sure, especially when people start making comments, you're seeing what those are, and if there's some issue, that you have somebody who's able to diffuse it. Okay? And so that's kind of one of the things. You do social media, I mean, it's free. It can really engage, but you have to have somebody who monitors it all the time. Okay? All right? The last one I would suggest is this plan is you have to figure out, okay, because once you get your page set up and you start posting, if you're trying to grow your congregation, who is somebody who's going to procure, like the visitors who come for a service? Who's somebody who's going to find them on Facebook and get them connected? Okay, because they came for a service, maybe they don't come back. Who's going to get them connected so they can stay connected with who you are? Same thing with parents of potential students, same kind of way. Who's somebody who's going to keep track of every single student who comes on a visit and is able to find their parents on Facebook and connect with them so they can stay connected with the school? That's really where the difference is going to be made. Okay? All right? Yes?
So I have a Facebook page for preschool.
Yep.
What I've noticed is that I have to use my personal one to find friends to come to them. Oh, never mind. I guess she's showing up.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, though. You have to, with your page for the school, for them to be able to follow you, the best way is you find them and you follow them. And then they then can follow you back. That, or liking one of their posts if you don't necessarily want to follow them. That's what we have to do on Instagram, like with potential students. Any potential students we meet with, anytime I go to high schools, when I get the list of students, I have to go out and find their Instagram. And if I follow them, most times they will follow me back. Yeah.
So I guess this is something that's kind of hard for a smaller church, is that it takes a lot of work.
Very much.
To stay consistent with the
Yep.
page. So, I mean, we've contemplated hiring somebody.
Yep.
Because this could be a full-time job.
Yes,
And
it
so
could.
I guess that's a question of, if you can't, in whatever organization you have, find somebody or some people who do this, what are the opportunities, if you know of any, to hire somebody on, and what would that look like? I don't know if that's appropriate for this, but honestly, the hardest part is I could come up with a whole plan, but I don't have the time
That's right.
to execute it. My husband could do it as
Yep.
a pastor. We could have a few people, but coming up with the whole plan, I feel like, is the background, and then
Yes.
the consistency of maintaining it is where we're struggling to get people in.
Absolutely.
So,
No, I completely agree.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that
And
too.
kind of building on that, what we do is there's 2 of us, and we gather once a month, and we do all the posts
Yep.
and set them up, so then it just runs.
And there are, we use Canva, and that might be one that you're going to
That is, yes.
where you
Yeah.
can schedule the post.
Yep.
And then I'm thinking of
Best way.
stories where you can do the polls, and
Yeah.
those are ones that are harder
Yes.
to schedule because
They
you
are.
have to set those up. So I'm thinking long term, and we had somebody and she left, but that's the hard part, is getting somebody who's all in on this.
Yeah.
Because maybe a retired adult isn't going to want to do it, and
Yep.
maybe a high school student who's looking at going to college, this is going to be a lot for them to do on their side. So.
Oh, I agree. And so I think it starts with your content calendar. You got to put a calendar together that is sustainable for your staffing right now. I think that's number one. And then I can tell you there's a lot. I mean, college students everywhere, they're looking for internships, looking for opportunities. Even if it's hiring someone, just hiring an intern, and maybe you can find people who are willing to do it for free, especially if there are students who, like students at any of the Concordias for that matter, who are in business or maybe in church work, but they do a minor in business. I mean, like the 3 students I showed you, social media wasn't something they got into until later on, but that's as far as staffing, that's where I would start, because especially if you can put together an internship and the student can get credit for it, now they have some skin in the game, and that way there's no cost to you. Yeah.
I'm also aware, and unfortunately I can't recall, let's say, who this is, but I am guessing that there are more than one person who has taken this on as a business. So
Yeah.
I'm aware of a Lutheran person in our area who has reached out and said, if you want to outsource this, we will do this for you.
Yep.
And I'm thinking about the value then of having a strong brand platform and
Yep.
turning it over to that
Yes.
person and saying, this is our voice, this
Yep.
is how we want to appear, and then
That's right.
getting a professional to do it.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. If you have if that exists.
All day long for multiple churches.
Sure. Yep. I agree. And so I think it all starts, you have to put a content calendar together of something you can sustain right now. And if it's just 2 posts a week, then that's fine. At least it's something consistent that aligns with what your messaging is. Okay. Now, tools, Canva. Okay. So these are some tools. Now, one is, so Canva is one, and the interesting thing with these two, you can use these for free. Okay, now there's limits of what you can do, but they're free resources. But the interesting thing is Canva used to strictly just be a website where you can produce the really cool videos and add graphics and things like that and pictures. And Buffer was the one where you couldn't necessarily do production, but what you could do is you could develop posts and upload them into a calendar on Buffer and link it to your Facebook and Instagram, and then they automatically post it for you. But now what you'd see with Canva has started to add the scheduling thing. So you can get on Canva, and I'll show you here some screenshots, and actually do that. But these are free resources. Now what you're going to probably find is the more team members you add, you're going to have to pay, but what you pay is relatively small based on what the benefit could be. So Buffer, for instance, this is kind of shows you do a membership, and we show her on the free one, and then you can connect your pages. Okay, so you connect your channels. So we have our LinkedIn profile and our Facebook page linked on there. Okay, and then once you produce your post, this is kind of an example like one of our student spotlights. So you can produce your post, and you can actually put the language in, you put the video in. Okay, and then you schedule by the exact day and time that you want it posted. And then you can start, and I think somebody already said that, you know, like maybe you just have a summer intern, okay, or somebody doing something over the summer, and maybe you say, okay, I want you, based on my content calendar, I want you doing, you know, 12 interviews, okay, and producing 12 posts on this particular theme, you know, over the 2 months. And then once the posts are produced, then you can load them into Buffer and you just schedule them, okay, and then they post automatically. And that way you're not trying to get on Facebook and Instagram and do that stuff during the workday and things like that. So Buffer is a great tool. And then this kind of shows too is once you make the post, then and especially if you make the post on multiple channels, then you just go into Buffer and it shows all the comments on every channel. So you have one place you can go to manage comments, and you can literally in Buffer, like Ryan Berger is one of our alums who's on the board of regents at Concordia. He was talking about himself and the fact that he was moving his hands all the time in his interview, okay? But I could reply to Ryan through Buffer and it goes straight on to Facebook. And so Buffer is a really good tool if you just can dig into it. And a lot, for me, it was a lot of just kind of digging in and trying things. But that's one. The great thing, though, is when you, like if you hire interns or if you hire someone like a professional to manage your page, you then can add them to your team on Buffer. And then you can do all that in Buffer, and that way they can have the access to Buffer. They can produce posts, they can post them. But when you decide you don't want to have them with you anymore, or something of that nature, or if the internship is done, then you just delete them. Okay, and that way you don't have to add them like as an admin on Facebook or Instagram. You just have them all here. Okay, so that's one tool. The other one is Canva. Canva is one where you really can get really creative on posts, and it has a lot of graphics and things, and that's something that's been really valuable for us, for me in particular, because I am not creative. But Canva is the same way, where you can, so we have a College of Business team, and then the students my interns can work on all their posts, and then they can post them here. And then I can look at them to see if they align. They can post them on Canva, and then I can look at them, make sure they align with our brand platform. And then if they do, then I say, okay, hey, go ahead and schedule it for this time. Okay? So these are a bunch of different posts that we've done recently. Okay? And so I can go into projects. Now the other neat thing with that is I can then, just like with Buffer, I can add my interns to be a member of my team. So then they can access, they can get things, they can produce things, I can see it in real time. But then I'm not adding them, because when you add them to an admin of your Facebook page, that gives them a lot of power. And do I Daryl's wonderful, but do I want Daryl to have all the power in the world of my Facebook page? No. Okay. So this kind of gives a way to give them the ability to to produce things and schedule posts. But then that's it, okay? Again, it's a free resource. Now, as you can imagine, they're going to try to sell you on everything, and it's always going to be these pop-up windows and things like that. But we've had these both for free for 2 years, and we've been able to do kind of what we want, okay? Now, so let's say you put all that together, and I'm talking like literally if you're trying to launch something. What we did is we did a private launch first, because we had to kind of relaunch our Facebook page, but then with Instagram we did a private launch, okay? So we got it designed, we had it set to private, and this is something too, if you're trying to recreate your Facebook page or Instagram page, okay, you can keep the followers, but then get posts and get those ready, and have those made. So that's kind of what we did, is we did 2 weeks worth of posts. And then we had the pages as private, and then we went out and we got students we procured audience members. So we got students to follow us again, and we were able to just have like what we would call a focus group, like a small amount of them. We had maybe 20, and we had them look at our page and give us feedback on it. Okay, And that way you're really seeing them. It's one that you put the brand platform together, you work hard on a post with a content calendar, you do your messaging, you do all that, but you still want to make sure that it aligns with who your audience is. And they give you feedback. And my students, they gave me pretty brutal feedback, okay? But then it allowed us, before we did a big public launch, it allowed us to get feedback and make some changes. And it was good feedback. They loved giving feedback to their professor. Absolutely. Okay? Incorporate it, and then we just put everything public. And so students, and then people can grab onto it. That's what I would suggest. Even if you've already, like we had already had a Facebook page. That had been going on for a long time. We didn't have Instagram, but we kind of then, we didn't shut Facebook down, but we just kind of reconfigured it and then did kind of another focus group there. Okay? All right? And then making your pages work. Okay? And so we talked about those audiences. Okay? And I'm just using it as an example for us. Okay? We knew Instagram, we were trying to connect with potential students, current students, and young alums. Okay? 22 to 25. All right? So we use Instagram. Now, our goal with them, with at least potential students, is we're just trying to get them aware of who we are and have them stay connected with us once they apply or after their visit, okay? And so that's kind of where, I think from your standpoints, if you have a school and then part of one of your goals is to grow enrollment, you know, being able to connect, being able to have somebody who gets that student connected with your Instagram page, if you decide to do that. Current students, so we wanted to really build a community and get them more engaged, and so this kind of again, it's fun for your current students if you manage it well, to get them engaged, okay? And then young alums, I want them to stay engaged with what we're doing, know what we're doing when they graduate, because eventually I'm going to ask them for money, right? And I want them to be able to donate. Now, my older audiences, 25 plus, so I'm looking at alumni, parents of potential students, parents of alums, okay? And our goal with this is engagement, okay, with our alumni. I want them engaged, but eventually I want them to be able to feel comfortable and feel like they can donate and have a reason for donating, so that I'm not even have to making an ask in my role as a dean, that they want to, because they're seeing what we're doing, they're constantly engaged, okay? Parents, I want them to stay engaged and push their kids to choose us. And if the parents can get on Facebook and see the things that we're doing and be engaged that way, that may help. All right, and then parents of alums, same kind of way. Engagement and donation. I mean, I'm just being very transparent that you have to have a reason for what you're doing, okay? I mean, yes, I want them to be engaged and come to events, but we're trying to build endowments too, just like Lynn Lutheran was, okay? And so it makes it a lot easier for me to ask if they can already see what's going on. It's much less of a sell, okay? So I think from your standpoints, especially if you're growing your congregations, you're trying to increase donations, you're trying to build up a donation to be able to pay off a debt or to purchase another building, purchase more property, whatever, the more people are engaged and know what's going on, a lot easier it is for you to make the ask. It just is. Okay? And so, again, you do all the brand platform and everything, but if that's crucial, but this is crucial too, because this is kind of like, from a coaching standpoint, I can prepare all the game plans and have my players practice like crazy and do all this stuff, but what matters is when you actually are doing it. That's really what matters. Okay? Now, what I ask for you, if you're looking for ideas, and I'm not saying that we have the best stuff ever, but we've just kind of done some neat things with social media. You're welcome to follow us, Facebook or Instagram. If you're looking for help with anything business-wise, you can email that email, and we can get a group of students together and help you. Okay? Whether it's doing an operations audit, feasibility study on purchasing property, we do just about everything. Most of what we do is stuff related to marketing, social media, but we can do pretty much anything.
Would we email that for the slides too?
You can, yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Any questions about anything at all that I could answer? Yes, sir.
Is the Lynn Lutheran page, is that completed, or is that launched, or what success is it?
All that we did for Lynn Lutheran was we helped them build their brand platform and then gave them suggestions on what to do. But since that time, the last I talked with Lydia, their endowment has increased 36% donation-wise. Because I think the brand platform had a lot to do with it. But we didn't do social media for them. They weren't ready. They weren't ready for that yet. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just thinking, from a congregational point of view, what do you think a visitor would feel like if we turned around and followed a visitor's Instagram or Facebook page?
Well, I think that's a good point. I think you have to gauge the visitor and what they would think. Or there's ways with Facebook that you can invite them to like your page instead, which may be a little bit more comfortable for them. So there's ways, especially in the Meta suite, META, where there's a tool you can use to invite people to like you. That may be a better option depending on who the potential member is. Yeah.
Do you have a concept of like you're driving a sales funnel? What percent of turnover students you're able to recruit based on all this marketing?
Not yet. We just did the launch and have been able to do the content calendar for about 5 months.
So is the idea behind the content calendar that you're trying to game the metric for Facebook to make you higher, or is it
just have organization? The idea is, if we have something and we know this, our followers know, hey, once a month, this inside the classroom, a reason for them to come back, a reason for them to stay with us. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I just was going to mention, we applied for nonprofit status in Canada, and then we get Canada for free.
Really?
And members, so
Yeah.
You just need your tax ID.
Okay.
50 users.
That's wonderful.
Be careful about schools.
Yeah, you do have to be careful.
It doesn't necessarily apply to schools, it applies to churches.
Okay.
We have a nonprofit, so I'm gonna tell my husband.
There you go.
This gives you more access.
Yeah. That's great. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all for being here. Safe travels.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I just wanted to shake your hand. I felt like I needed to make the Lindenwood connection.
Oh, yeah.
My
Yeah.
nephew is just coming out of the college football program there.
He is?
Yeah, he
Okay.
was there. He came out of junior college, and then he spent 1 year injured. The
Okay.
last year they were D2, and they moved up D1, and he
Yeah.
had a little less playing time this year, but he did get in. He made a touchdown this year.
Yeah?
He's a wide receiver. So
Was he? Okay.
yeah,
Super.
yeah. So, but just hearing you talk, I was like, oh, this is like it's
Yeah.
launch time for him, and I'm just
That's
thinking
right.
about his future and
Yes.
what he's looking to do, and all of your story of just
Yeah.
coming out of that and wanting to stay connected with athletics. And
Yeah.
he's kind of
Yeah.
in that same
Is he?
mode.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out how to use what he's done in the past.
Sure.
So, but it
Well-
just really helped me.
Oh, yeah.
As someone who's very invested in his future.
Sure.
To hear your story. And,
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to have him email me if you'd like. I'd be glad to talk to him.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
I'll give him your information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. He's sort of trying to find his way right now.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because football's been his life for
It
a long time.
And it was
Yeah.
it's a grieving process for him right now.
Yes.
To go through that and figure out what's next.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's doing some NBA stuff and.
Oh, at Lindenwood?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna see what comes next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Like God sent me here today so
That's
that I could meet you and hear
yeah.
your story. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi.
Do you guys?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a director of a preschool connected to a church.
Yes.
Years ago, they closed the school. And,
Okay.
The day school and the middle school.
Okay.
They never went through we never went through a rebranding. It was just keep
Yeah.
trucking. We're gonna act like this didn't happen.
Yeah.
So if I emailed you, would we able to figure?
Yes, we could.
Because our pastor, he's great. I love him, but it doesn't translate when he leaves his office. So he's got like a social anxiety that he's not very engaged with people one-on-one.
Got it.
Outside of sermon and office, and we're super small. So like, I'm trying to do everything on my own, and obviously I can't. We're a small staff, like 6 teachers, you know, and so just like